Fuck the zero and get with the hero. I think he says something like that. Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate. Stopping on by and just laughing with glee because this movie is truly something to behold. I'm stopping on by for another one of my famed movie / Blu-ray reviews. Stopping on by to review the movie and the Kino Lorber Blu-ray release of Vanilla Ice in Cool as Ice. So my history with this movie goes all the way back to, I guess, when it was probably new on home video, just being a video store, nut psychopath in the early, in the 80s and into the early 90s and stuff. I often, was in the video store probably every week, I would imagine, at minimum, and just checking out this and that. So I would have been familiar with, I was 13, I think, when Vanilla Ice really, blew onto the scene in 1990, and of course when this movie came out in 91, I would have been 14. And at the time I was listening to primarily, movie score soundtracks and classical music. Well, 91 I was into, I just discovered because of some of the songs in The Rocketeer and stuff, I just discovered big band music and stuff. So at the time I was geeking out, listening to movie scores and stuff, classical music, and then I was just in 91 new into big band. I didn't listen to popular music as a kid at all. Well, maybe not at all, but at this time when this movie came out, and in 1990 and 91, I mean, even in 91, because me and Keith saw, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 at a second run theater, and even, when Vanilla Ice appeared in Turtles 2, I mean, he was a joke to us 14-year-olds at the time. We were like, who the hell is enjoying this stuff? But I gotta tell you, I'll cut to all these decades later, 30 years later. It's so insane to it was so anyway, what I'm trying to say is I all the way back to the early 90s, I remember seeing this VHS in video stores, is what I'm trying to say. Didn't see the movie until just last year. Kino Lorber had a sale, and it's funny because in the summer they had a sale, and this movie, I'd been kind of interested in seeing this movie, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, this was $9. I'm gonna add it to the cart, whatever, and then go back the next day and maybe get stuff or whatever. I don't have time to find enough stuff to get free shipping or whatever. I go back the next day, it wasn't available for $10 anymore. It was like, oh no, I missed out on Cool as Ice for $10. And then later on, weeks later, Kino Lorber had another sale, and it was $10 again. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get out. After I missed out on the $10 Blu-ray, I'm like, oh my God, I was obsessed with seeing this movie for some reason. So luckily, weeks later, it was $10 again, and I ordered it along with some other stuff that I've already reviewed, like Haunted Honeymoon and some stuff that I probably won't talk about. One movie that was a blind buy that was just really shitty. I can't even remember what the hell was it. It was I don't know. It was really depressing. It was the movie with that one chick and that one guy. Maybe I'll put the title on the screen. Summer Heat of the Sun. I'll put the title on the screen, but that was actually a blind buy, really depressing, and I probably won't review it. But anyway, that's just my history with this movie. Hadn't seen it until last year, and then I recently rewatched it, saw it for the second time. I made Beth watch it, and I gotta tell you, I mean, I can't say I didn't enjoy it at all when I first saw it last year, but having seen it again, maybe it's because it's spring and I'm more, happy than I was all winter or something. But seeing it again, I'm like, you know what? This is kind of, I mean, it's stupid as all get out, And what's funny is it's rated PG, so it's for the kiddies. And unlike the guy, the white rapper who would end up coming down the pike, about a decade, I suppose, right around a decade after the rise to fame of Vanilla Ice, he wasn't so much promoted to the kiddies as much as Vanilla Ice was. I can't remember if I don't think Vanilla Ice, at least in his original album, cursed and was all nasty and swore and stuff. I think he was aimed a little more at kids, so this movie's rated PG, and I gotta tell you, even though I'm not a fan necessarily of this stuff, what's so cool is that at the time when it was popular, or they were shoving it down our throats, me and Keith were just like laughing at Vanilla Ice. But now it's like so many decades later, and he's not even like really relevant that much anymore. And I find myself like almost kind of like enjoying it now that no one else cares about it, kind of a thing. And it's like, I gotta admit, like the opening credits, the opening credits of this movie are just like some kind of song and just all this dancing and stuff. And I gotta tell you, although I'm not necessarily like a hip hop dancing enthusiast or anything, like some of the dance moves and stuff, I find myself just laughing at, both because it's just so goofy, but also, let's face it, I mean, I suppose it's talent to be able to do that stuff, and that jumping and all this kind of, whatever, just hip hop dance moves and stuff. And even the opening credits, like the tune isn't even horrible, like the what's it called, it's called like what is it called when you go back into the chorus? Is it the chorus? Yeah, it's not even that horrible, And it's like, God, the opening credits, like the editor must have, there's probably more cuts in the opening credits than there is in the whole rest of the movie. The opening credits are insane, even all these decades later. Just, goofy ass dance moves, just this hyper activity of him spazzing out, just all these dance moves and stuff. So if it puts a smile on your face, it's worth $10. I mean, let's put it that way. I probably would have even paid $15 for this movie. But anyway, after the opening credits with the song and all the cuts and jumping around and dance moves and this and that, it's basically a story about quote unquote, about this Vanilla Ice character. He's got some name, I can't remember what his name is. He drives around with for some reason, I guess he's too cool to hang out with white people, but all his 3 friends are black people, a chick and 2 guys, and they all ride around. Probably go. I don't know if they have a home. I don't know, but they all ride around on their motorcycles, crotch rockets, and I suppose they just do shows here and there. They get Hot Blonde's phone numbers, which she gave him a faulty number because 555. Any phone number starting with that, those numbers isn't even real. So she didn't even give him her real phone number. So he thinks he's all cool. Well, he didn't even get a real number. That's not a real number. But the chick was pretty hot. I don't think we ever see her again. But we get the impression from the beginning of the movie that, these people are just like whatever, musicians, rappers. They just drive around the country on their crotch rockets and do shows and are just cool and stuff. And right early on in the movie, they're going down the street and, he looks over and he sees some, chick, John Woo, slow-mo shot, I think. This chick, who's a sexy, chick. She's got a nice body and a nice face and kind of a Jennifer Connelly-ish kind of a face and stuff. And she's on her, she's all prissy or whatever you want to call it, riding on her horse. And Vanilla Ice has to be all cool, and he like jumps, which is something you can't do unless there's a jump there. But he just jumps the fence right in front of her on his, crotch rocket motorcycle thing, lands. I don't know if he crashes. I can't remember. No, I think he lands, but the horse ends up, spazzing out because he's scared of this idiot on the motorcycle that jumped over the fence, and I think she falls off the horse, and he's Vanilla Ice. Is it Johnny? Is his character's name Johnny in this movie? We'll just call him Johnny, whether it is or not. He's the valiant hero who picks her up off the ground. She wouldn't be on the ground if it wasn't for him, but that's besides the point. Anyway, he's like, yo, check it. I don't know what he says, but anyway, I think he's kind of smitten with this horse riding chick who wouldn't be. I mean, she's pretty cute and a nice body and attractive and sexy and stuff. So I think, that was kind of like, hey, man, she's cute or whatever. And then they're driving into town or whatever, and one of his friends, motorcycle, crotch rockets, breaks down. And luckily it breaks down right outside of Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse, which is actually the house / business of this one guy who we all know from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's also in that 3D horror movie that I can't remember what it's called. He's in other movies, I'm sure, as well. But the one guy from, you'll know him from that movie. And I've seen this woman before, probably in movies and stuff. But they live at what looks to be Pee Wee's Playhouse with just this goofy-ass house and goofy-ass production design. And it just happens to be a place where he can get his motorcycle fixed. And it turns out it happens to be right, is it right across the street from, yeah, it might be right across the street from where this hot, horse riding chick lives as well. So that's pretty convenient. And we meet the hot horse riding chick's asshole Corvette driving boyfriend, and her dad is Michael Gross of Family Ties and Tremors fame, and it's always fun seeing him as just the dad again. He's spent the whole '80s being the dad, and now he's still the dad. And I don't think he's a dad in Tremors, so that's a break. But everybody's thrilled to be the dad again. She's got a younger, NES, Nintendo Entertainment System playing brother. You get to hear some of the original, like, I don't know if it's Mario game or something, the boing, boing, and did whatever, some authentic, Nintendo Entertainment System sounds and stuff. The younger brother, of course, thinks, the John, is it Johnny? Vanilla Ice character is cool as ice. And I guess he's not wrong. And let's face it, anyone who talks like Vanilla Ice and has the cap and the sunglasses and the pants and the bike and the shades at night and all, just the swagger and the almost ununderstandable way of talking. I mean, he's cool as ice. But we find out that his buddy's getting his motorcycle repaired right across the street from where this chick lives. This chick is on TV with her dad about being some kind of super student and horse rider chick. She can just do everything. She's so amazing. And these two criminals or whatever, are they former co-workers? Were they all cops? I can't remember. There's this convoluted story which just doesn't even matter, but it's their way of adding some drama to this movie where, Michael Gross, the dad character, has got some scary ass past. I've seen this movie twice. I can't even honestly remember all the details about the past. He's in the witness because of whatever happened of him being a cop. Maybe he ratted out these two other guys. Maybe they were bad cops and he ratted them out. He got into the witness protection program and changed him and his wife's name and moved somewhere else. And it's just like, well, me and Beth went for a walk the other day and we were talking about it. It's just like, well, maybe if you're trying to stay incognito under the radar, maybe you shouldn't go on TV. Might be a thought. But anyway, because he went on TV, these two criminals, one of which is the guy from Crash and Burn, who's the fat guy, who he went on to be in all kinds of other movies and TV probably as well. But that guy, the fat guy from Crash and Burn, is one of the two evil henchmen, and it's rated PG, so it's kind of like, the full moon movie Remote. Like these henchmen are PG henchmen. They're not that threatening because you can only be so threatening in a PG, I guess, Vanilla Ice made for kids movie. But they, then the Michael Gross dad sees Vanilla Ice outside talking to them, so he thinks he's in cahoots with these two bad guys who are trying to extort money from him or whatever, and then whatever. But the premise of the movie, if you can call it that, is mostly just Vanilla Ice, of course, pursuing, the hot chick. And, I gotta admit, let's face it, I mean, I probably wouldn't have thought so at the time because, back when it was 91 or whatever and it was trying to be cool, I just kind of shunned it, But, decades later you can revisit it, or not revisit it, but see it for the first time and be like, you know what, it's so out of date that I can go, okay, it's been long enough where I can say there's aspects to this movie that are kind of fun and put a smile on your face. And let's face it, it doesn't exist to be any kind of great work of art. It exists to try to capitalize on just the instant whatever success of Vanilla Ice or whatever. And from what I think I read like a blurb in a forum on Blu-ray.com where someone actually saw it in the theater and they were like the only one in the theater or something. I don't know. I can just remember that. It might be the case, might not be, but I can only assume that is probably very close to what the situation would have been if you were to see this movie in the theater. Of course, I did not. The only thing I saw in the theater with Vanilla Ice in was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go! Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go! But that's another story. So the whole premise, as I said, of this movie is just Vanilla Ice basically trying to woo this chick, and there aren't as many, and I gotta admit, I was kind of disappointed. There aren't as many like, rap dance scenes as one would think. There's the main opening credits one, where it's like a song and spazzing out doing the dance moves. And then there's this scene where there's kind of a funny scene where they, the hot chick and the convertible driving asshole boyfriend go to this, I guess probably a small town, so it's probably the only night spot where there's just boring white guy trying to sing and boring white guys trying to play guitars and instruments, and it's kind of funny. The trailer for this movie is kind of interesting, where it's like, they're from the 50s with fashions from the 60s and music from the 70s, and all of a sudden this town needed something cool, and all of a sudden it's Vanilla Ice or whatever. But it's funny how they portrayed the boring white band in this movie, and then all of a sudden Vanilla Ice and his pals come into the club and just turn it upside down, or whatever. And there's a song and a dance scene, but there's only the opening credits, song and dance, then this scene, song and dance, and like towards the end of the basically closing credits, more or less, song and dance. So I was actually kind of surprised how little song and dance there is in the movie. I guess I would have been open to at least one more song and dance bit, but I mean, Jesus, for as insane as like the opening credits and even the end of the movie song and dance stuff is, it's almost like enough, just because it just destroys the senses. So I guess it's kind of a compliment to the movie, just the cutting and just the spastic nature of the dancing and stuff just makes you go, oh man. And one thing I want to say, there's this really cool shot of in the trailer of Vanilla Ice in the desert, standing on his motorcycle and the camera's circling around. That shot's not in the movie, damn it. Why can't that shot be in the movie? That shot's not in the movie. It's one of those instances where you got a cool shot in the trailer and it's not in the movie. So that's a bummer. If you see the trailer and if you're waiting for that shot in the movie, be warned, it's not even in the movie. But that's, I guess, the premise of this movie. Cool guy comes into town, woos the chick, and talks all cool, has this funky-ass clothes, funky-ass haircut, where it's like, yeah, it's funky-ass, and he's riding his bike around, and he not only woos the girl, but he's able to save the day, because the little kid who plays the Nintendo Entertainment System, he ends up getting kidnapped by these two, PG-rated, it's not, well, it's a year after Home Alone. I wouldn't call it, they're not like portrayed as, these bad guys aren't portrayed as stupid, but the non-fat one kind of comes across almost like just, it reminds me, I think I've only seen Full Moon Movie Remote once, but it just reminds you of that PG-rated like threat, which isn't very threatening or whatever. But yeah, they end up kidnapping the kid, the little boy, at the end of the movie, and of course Vanilla Ice ends up saving the day and gets the girl and thwarts the bad guys in a very PG fashion. And of course, all this time, and then at the end of the movie, I don't know how many days go by. Basically, I didn't even mention that the guy and woman that live in Pee-wee's Playhouse, they basically completely disassemble the guy's motorcycle to fix it and put it back together. So it takes like, I don't know how many, like a week or something, 4 or 5 days for them to actually fix the motorcycle. And they're like, yeah, you can stay here at Pee-wee's Playhouse. They don't say that, but you can stay here as long as it takes. So it's just enough time for Vanilla Ice to woo the chick, save the kid, thwart the bad guys, and then by the time that all happens, the bike's fixed and they're gonna, I can't even remember if he leaves town, or if he takes the girl with. I can't even remember. I mean, I know that they're like together, because the dance scene music number at the end, I think, has the chick in the audience or something. So it's not like they're parting ways. I think it's like happily ever after or whatever. But of course, at the end of the movie, he's got to get all dressed up cool and dance it away or whatever and stuff. So I guess that's pretty much the movie. What's my star rating for Cool as Ice? Honestly, I didn't hate it when I saw it for the first time last year, and having revisited it for the second time this year, it's probably not a movie that deserves this high of stars, but I mean, let's face it, it continuously, because of just like the nonsensical, I guess, way he most often talks, the Vanilla Ice character, just the goofy way his persona is. Just like he can't just be a normal person, he's got to be his rap Vanilla Ice, just personality. Yo, check. It's just like he can't say anything normal. And if he ever does, well, I guess he does, and when he does, it seems so weird. If he just like says a line and it's like not Vanilla Icy. So it continuously puts a smile on my face, just because it's like, I guess there's part nostalgia, even though I didn't give a fuck about Vanilla Ice when I was a teenager. Like, it was just like, that's just not my scene. That's just, but I mean, it's part nostalgia because I was aware of this was happening in my childhood and teenage years. So I mean, I guess it's part nostalgia. But I can go as high as, I guess this is really high for this movie, but 2.5 stars out of 4 stars for Cool as Ice. He's definitely cool. I'll say that for him. And it doesn't hurt that the chick is really cute, and they have her in some relatively cute outfits. Early '90s, just girls back when girls dressed cute. Back in the early '90s, when girls actually liked being girls and they dressed cute and stuff. So it's fun. It was fun seeing, even like the kind of how the fashion of the little boy, the little brother, how he dressed, and just seeing the early '90s fashions, but in particular on the chick. She had some cute outfits and stuff. So that's my review of the movie. Now on to my review of the Kino Lorber Blu-ray. When the hell did this come out? It was hard for me to tell for sure, but I'm pretty sure I saw the year 2021 on this. I didn't think it was that recent. So it's quite possible this didn't come out on Blu-ray until 2021. If that's the case, wow, lucky us. But, obviously a early 90s Universal title. I know that when Universal was first putting out Blu-rays, like Tremors and other titles and stuff, they were notorious for like trying to, DNR the grain away and stuff. And I can only assume this is like a Universal, an old Universal HD scan that Kino got a hold of or whatever. But rest assured, it's not the, smeary, DNR'd, early Universal Blu-ray release look. It's a good freaking look. I want to say, this cinematographer, is this the guy who went on to do Schindler's List? It's very possible the guy who actually lensed Cool as Ice, may have went on to do Schindler's List. I want to say it's very possible. Might be the guy, might not be. But imagine going from, Cool as Ice to Schindler's List in a couple of years. That's quite the resume. But yeah, rest assured, it doesn't have the Blu-ray doesn't have the waxy ass DNR'd get every ounce of grain off of the image look that like Tremors, the original Universal Blu-ray Tremors had, and probably, well, like Last Starfighter, also like some of them early Universal Blu-ray releases are just smeary as all hell, and the DVDs almost look better. But rest assured, that's not the case here. You've got healthy grain structure, and like I say, I have nothing to compare this to because I've never seen this any other way. This is the first time I've seen it. Honestly, it does kind of almost make me want to, having grown up and seen this video cassette in the stores, and when I was a teenager, it almost makes me want to get, the original VHS cassette released, not only to have, but to watch and compare to as well. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't. But it's definitely a serviceable, doable, recommended Blu-ray release. Obviously, the sound is just left and right. 2-channel stereo surround. Early 90s, nothing to complain about in the sound department. So audio and video on this release are no complaints from me. You've got so many costumes and stuff that are I guess outfits that Vanilla Ice wears that can be colorful, and also the Pee-wee's Playhouse location is all colorful, and some of the cinematography is colorful and snazzy and early 90s colors and stuff. So really nothing to complain about with this Blu-ray release. Taking a look at the back here, we can see the limited amount of special features, audio commentary by film historians, this person and that person, and theatrical trailer. And like I say, that really cool ass shot of him standing in the desert on his motorcycle with the camera circling him is not in the actual movie, but it's in the trailer. Why not put it in the movie? It was one of the best frickin' shots, and it's not in the movie. But luckily there's still some cool slash lame ass shots left in the movie, so I guess that's a good thing. Taking a look at the disc itself, if you know anything about recent Kino Lorber Blu-ray releases, you won't be surprised with this disc art. As I've said before, not crazy about the the recent Kino Lorber Blu-ray release disc art, but it's just their standard kind of look that they've been going with for the last several years. But thanks to Kino Lorber, a lot of stuff's on Blu-ray that probably otherwise wouldn't be, so not going to complain too much. Thanks for Kino Lorber for putting out all kinds of Blu-rays, including this one. Honestly, if you would have told me when I was 14 that I'd end up seeing this movie over 30 years later and actually kind of liking it and seeing it more than once, I probably would have said, "Get out of here, man, you're crazy." But I gotta tell you, things happen with time. Time really changes us and turns us into Vanilla Ice fans. Just kidding, I'm not a Vanilla Ice fan, but it's so funny how, when it's happening at the time and when they're shoving this down your throat, I was just so opposed to it, and rightfully so. And then decades later, I kind of crawl back over to it, and it's just like, you know what? Look over here, look over there. No one's paying attention. I'm going to watch this because no one else is watching it. And we'll take a look at it. And we can, decades removed, decades later, all these decades later removed, we can not because I never saw it before last year, but we can look at it kind of from, decades removed from this era that it came out in. And like I say, look back on it. Even though I never saw it at the time, I can look back on it nostalgically because, wow, this movie came out, I was 14, and I can't say life was good because I was in school, high school and stuff, but there were aspects of, my life that was obviously enjoyable at the time, and just getting into horror movies, enjoying, horror movies, falling in lust with Jennifer Connelly because of Rocketeer and Career Opportunities, 1991, that was just, oh man. That was such a great year. So it's fun to be able to go back for the very first time to 1991 and see this movie for the very first time and go, yeah, when that stuff was happening with me, this was also happening. And maybe in theaters where there was either no one in the audience or maybe one person, but regardless, they still made the movie, put it out, and I imagine it flopped, but it still existed and it still does exist. And lucky us, I guess. So I guess that pretty much does it for this review. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.